Whatever you're looking to do online, you can build it on Linode. But not just build it, provision, secure, monitor, and back it up too. Linode is a full-service hosting operation with 10 data centers around the world, with their newest in Toronto now open, and the next coming in Mumbai by the end of the year. And Linode isn't just a hosting operation, they are a world-class hosting operation, with SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and industry-leading processors powering their servers. If you know what you want, you can dig right in. Or you can let Linode do some of the setup for you with their easy one-click installs of a variety of servers. Find out what Linode can do for you by visiting linode.com/MacVoices and using the offer code MacVoices2019 to get $20 off your first purchase. That's linode.com/MacVoices and the code MacVoices2019 to take $20 off your first server. It won't be your last. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is a MacVoices briefing on using the Flow transition in Final Cut Pro 10. This MacVoices briefing is going to be sort of a combination of a Final Cut Pro 10 tip and a little bit of a look behind the scenes at how part of MacVoices gets produced. Now, if you're a Final Cut Pro 10 user, great. If you're not, don't turn us off just yet, because this will be very easy for you to understand and appreciate. So bear with me. When I'm recording MacVoices, and especially if I'm doing sort of a monologue like this, things can happen. Might be a cough, might be a sneeze, might be something off camera, a doorbell ringing or something coming crashing to the ground, something that interrupts things. And rather than go back and start to record that whole segment again, it's much nicer to just cut out the offending piece and keep on going. That results often, though, unfortunately, in something called a jump cut. And you've seen them before, and you'll see them again. I'll show you one in a minute, where you can tell that there's something happened in between, because the head movement, the face movement, the face location, the eyes, everything is just off for just a split second as you cut from one clip to the next. That's where the Flow dissolve comes in. Flow intelligently looks at the couple clips, the couple frames before and after the cut, and melds them together. And it's something that actually I wanted to tell you this tip for a while, but I just used it 3 times in the last MacVoices briefing I just did. And so I thought it's the perfect time to show it to you, because there are 3 perfect examples. So let's jump over and look at my MacBook Pro screen, which is where I'm doing the editing. And you'll see here that there's a little bit of a gap and something that looks like a plugin or a transition in between. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play it and let you see what it looks like with the dissolve in place, other than a social media presence, which is hosted by someone else. The canned websites are great, and so it looks pretty good. If you were watching carefully, you might have noticed. If you weren't watching, or if you're just watching casually, there's a pretty good chance that you didn't even notice that anything happened. Now, this is what it looks like without the dissolve transition, other than a social media presence, which is hosted by someone else. The canned websites are great. Okay, that's what a jump cut looks like. And again, it's not horrible, but it's just a little jarring. There are plenty of other ways to do those transitions, and I use different things for different purposes. But the dissolve is one that I've used frequently, and sometimes you might notice it, because sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not great, but it's kind of good enough. So again, if you were watching every single frame really critically, you would see that something happened. But if you're just watching casually, it just kind of goes by and you don't really think about it for more than maybe a second, if you think about it at all. So, as I said, I did this 3 times in this last particular briefing. And so I want to show you now the second one. And I'll show it to you with the dissolve. So I think that all of those presences are really, really important. For MacVoices, I have a page, and now I'll show it to you without the dissolve. So I think that all of those presences are really, really important. For MacVoices, I have a page. So again, it looks pretty good. The third and final one, I'll show you just out of this for the sake of completeness. This is with the dissolve inside Final Cut, and added the music from Soundstripe. And this is without the dissolve. inside Final Cut and added the music from Soundstripe. Now, you might think that this takes a lot of work, but it really doesn't, and that's sort of the beauty of it. You identify the location of your cut, which is pretty obvious since you were the one that just cut out whatever there was to be cut. You take the flow transition over and drag it into the slot and let it do its thing. Give it a minute to render out. Once it renders, play it back and see if you like it. If you do, great, you're done. That's all there is to it. If not, you may want to then tweak the edges. You may want to remove the flow transition and drag out just a couple frames on either side, one way or the other, so that the basic position of the face, head, eyes, everything gets just a little closer. Now, sometimes it just doesn't work. The head location is too far off, or something is just too far off, and the transition becomes obvious. But again, even if it is obvious, it's a lot smoother than just a typical dissolve transition or pretty much anything else. So I hope that you get an idea of just what you could do with this and how powerful it is. In the case of this particular MacVoices briefing, I'm just recovering from a cold, so there are times you just have to cough. And that's not something that you want to hear, but it's also not something that I want to go back and re-record and re-record and re-record, trying to get the whole way through. By being able to cut out some of those interruptions, the production gets done faster, it gets done easier, and you're pretty much none the wiser. I want to stress again that this was something that's built into Final Cut in the last few versions. Nothing extra to buy. If you download Final Cut right now, you will get the flow dissolve transition. And that's just one small tool within a whole big toolbox that Apple gives you in Final Cut. So if you know Final Cut or you use Final Cut now, you hopefully have a new tool. And if you don't, maybe this will encourage you to understand the power of Final Cut. Go download it, give it a try, and see what it can do for you. That's a briefing on the flow dissolve transition in Final Cut Pro 10. I'm Chuck Joyner. We'll be back with more soon. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.